raising concerns, were frequently accused of racism. Never again can people be silenced in that way. A word on the Prime Minister's comments this morning. It is not far right to stand up for victims of mass rape.
Did Labour MPs really cover up a massive rape gang scandal? The shocking truth is about to be revealed.
Tens of thousands of vulnerable young girls were systematically raped by organised gangs of men.
In this explosive video, we expose the damning evidence that has left Labour politicians squirming in their seats. Watch as one brave MP takes on the establishment and demands answers for thousands of victims. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. For years, they were ignored, dismissed, and even blamed. But today, the truth about thousands of young victims can no longer be silenced. The scale of the rape gang scandal that has rocked Britain is nothing short of staggering, and the vulnerability of the victims is heart-wrenching. These weren't just isolated incidents. We're talking about a systematic betrayal that spanned decades, affecting potentially tens of thousands of young girls across the country.
On sight of her statement, the whole country is shocked by the rape gang scandal.
From Rotherham to Rochdale, Oxford to Telford, the pattern was disturbingly similar. Vulnerable girls, often from troubled backgrounds or in care, were targeted, groomed, and exploited by organised gangs. But here's the kicker. Local councils and police forces knew about it. They had the information, they had the reports, and what did they do? They turned a blind eye. It's not just negligence, it's a complete abdication of responsibility. One victim from Rotherham, who was abused from the age of 11, said, "I was told that if I didn't get in the car, they would tell my mum I was a prostitute." Another whistleblower, a youth worker, revealed, "Every time I tried to report it, I was told to keep quiet. They said it would damage community relations."
Many cases were covered up because of absurd concerns about so-called community relations.
And there's the rub. The political motivations behind this cover-up are as insidious as they are infuriating. Time and again, concerns about community relations were prioritised over the safety and well-being of these young girls. It's a betrayal so profound it's hard to fathom. But why? Why would those in power choose to protect the perpetrators rather than the victims? The answer lies in a toxic mix of political correctness, fear of being labelled racist, and a misguided attempt to maintain social cohesion at any cost. A former detective who tried to investigate these crimes stated, "We were told to focus on other crimes. It was as if these girls didn't matter." This sentiment echoes across multiple investigations, painting a picture of institutional failure on a massive scale.
Instead of those victims being protected and the perpetrators prosecuted, those girls were systematically failed.
The mini payoff, if you can call it that, is the realisation that this wasn't just incompetence. It was a calculated decision to sacrifice the most vulnerable members of society on the altar of community relations. The very institutions meant to protect these girls instead became complicit in their abuse. But as the truth begins to surface, one MP is determined to make Labour face the music. The question now is, will justice finally be served, or will the establishment once again close ranks to protect its own?
Raising concerns, were frequently accused of racism. Never again can people be silenced in that way.
As the Shadow Secretary takes the floor, the atmosphere in the Commons becomes electric. Labour MPs shift uncomfortably in their seats, their faces a mix of apprehension and dread. They know what's coming, and it's not pretty. The Shadow Secretary's words cut through the air like a knife, each accusation landing with devastating precision. The most damning revelation? The alleged pressure on Simon Danczuk, former Labour MP for Rochdale, to keep his mouth shut about the rape gang scandal. It's a bombshell that sends shockwaves through the chamber, leaving Labour politicians visibly shaken. But the hits keep coming.
Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Home Secretary did not address the need for a full national public inquiry on this scandal.
The Shadow Secretary lays bare the hypocrisy of Labour's current stance, juxtaposing their newfound concern with their past inaction. It's a stark reminder of how the party prioritised community relations over justice for thousands of vulnerable girls. The cognitive dissonance is palpable, with some Labour MPs averting their eyes, unable to face the uncomfortable truth.
Issues, and it only covered 6 of the towns involved in the gang rape scandal.
The call for a statutory national public inquiry hangs in the air, a potential Pandora's box that could unravel decades of cover-ups and negligence. The implications are staggering. If such an inquiry goes ahead, it could expose not just Labour, but entire local authorities, police forces, and even the Crown Prosecution Service. As the Shadow Secretary's speech reaches its crescendo, the anticipation builds. How will Labour respond to these explosive allegations? The silence from the opposition benches is deafening. No immediate rebuttals, no impassioned defences, just a palpable sense of panic as they scramble for excuses. The mini payoff comes in the form of body language. Some Labour MPs fidget nervously, others whisper hurriedly to their colleagues. A few brave souls attempt to maintain a facade of calm, but the cracks are showing. It's clear that this moment marks a turning point, a potential unravelling of Labour's carefully constructed narrative. But as Labour scrambles for excuses, the real question remains: will justice finally be served? The ball's now in their court, and the nation watches with bated breath to see if they'll rise to the occasion or continue to bury their heads in the sand.
A word on the Prime Minister's comments this morning. It is not far right to stand up for victims of mass rape.
This moment could be a turning point for the victims and for accountability in British politics. For years, these girls were silenced, their pain ignored by those meant to protect them. But now, as one victim advocate puts it, never again can people be silenced in that way.
Police often did not investigate. Local councils covered things up. The Crown Prosecution Service.
The call for a public inquiry echoes through the halls of power, demanding justice and transparency. As citizens, we can't just sit back and watch. It's time to take action.
So it didn't cover everything. We do need to get to the truth.
Contact your local representatives. Demand answers. Push for that full inquiry. The truth can no longer be buried under layers of political excuses and misplaced priorities. But here's the question that should keep us all up at night. If those meant to protect us can cover up such atrocities, who can we really trust? The answer might be uncomfortable, but it's clear we can't rely on the establishment to police itself. It's up to us, the public, to hold them accountable and ensure that justice is finally served for these victims.